Hi, please could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role?
My name is Amelia Lee and I work for LGBT Youth North West, and previous to that I worked at Lesbian and Gay Youth Manchester.
If you could change 3 things about the LGBT community, what would they be?
The first one would be to have a better trust relationship amongst people, so that if we all trusted each other more and we were all more trustworthy, then we could all combine our efforts to combat homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, sexism, rather than have infighting between ourselves. The second would be to give people the chance to heal themselves a little bit. So when people are activists, sometimes they get very angry about a personal experience, so it could be homophobic bullying, and then they get fire in their belly and that anger they use for their activism, but what they haven't done is dealt with their own pain and their own self-healing. So if people took more time to recognise and understand the impact of homophobia, the impact of sexism, the impact of other things including racism and ableism, and to reconcile and be more at peace with themselves, as well as to know when to use their righteous anger, then I think we would have healthier, happier LGBT people. And the third would be for us to understand and perhaps put a spotlight on the idea that there are spectrums. There is a spectrum of gender, there's a spectrum of sexuality, and it's okay to fancy somebody who's of the same sex and then the next week fancy someone of an opposite sex, and actually is there even the opposite of that sex anyway, so if we get people thinking less about the binaries, so people don't feel they've got to be this or that, then eventually people can fall in love with somebody and they don't have to have running through their head, what is the gender of this person?
If you could sum up why you think LGBT youth work is important, how would you do that?
I think it's important because LGBT young people deserve it, because they deserve a space to feel safe, they deserve a place free from judgment and prejudice and discrimination, and once they've got that space, then they can grow into the most extraordinary young people and have a brilliant network of people that will support them throughout their whole lives and who they will support throughout their whole lives. And for some young people, this makes them more extraordinary, and for some other young people, they wouldn't survive being young without LGBT youth work.
How have you seen both your own activism and that in general within the LGBT community change over time?
I think my activism and LGBT activism have perhaps changed in similar ways, in that prior to getting a lot of legal equality, there was more radical activism, so direct action, things like the Lesbian Avengers abseiling into the House of Lords, and outrage groups doing things that really put LGBT rights on the map, but sometimes also weren't always considerate or didn't always hold the hands of other groups of people throughout that process. I think now the era that we're in, that we've got legal equality but not equality on the streets and in our culture, that the role of activism is slightly different, and we would do better and are doing better by holding the hands of people, getting to know and building up allies and allegiances with lots of groups and organisations. And there's still a place for radical politics, particularly internationally, but within the UK I think we've got a longer, gentler process about educating and supporting other people to understand and celebrate LGBT identity.
Thank you very much.